Computers feel simple. You turn them on, open a program, and everything just works. But behind the scenes, what we call just works is actually an enormous amount of complexity being carefully controlled every millisecond. And the system doing that controlling is the operating system. Windows, macOS, Linux. 3 names we hear constantly, but rarely think about. Today, we're going to slow down and look at what these systems actually do, how they're different, and why they matter far more than most people realize. So let's take a step back, simplify everything, and explain operating systems. Plainly, you probably use a computer every single day. You click an icon, a window opens, you type something, something happens, and everything feels normal, predictable, almost effortless. But the strange truth is that none of this is normal at all. Because behind every click, every key press, and every image on your screen, there's an invisible world doing billions of things per second, so your computer doesn't collapse into chaos. And that invisible world is something we call an operating system. Windows, macOS, Linux. 3 names you've probably heard 1,000 times. But what do these systems actually do? Why are they different? And why do some people swear by one, while others refuse to touch anything else? Today we're going to break down the entire idea of operating systems. What they are, why we need them, how they work underneath, and how Windows, macOS, and Linux ended up taking such different paths. You don't need to know anything technical to follow along. All you need is curiosity, because the more you learn about operating systems, the more you realize one thing: your computer is a lot stranger than it looks. What an operating system actually is. Let's start with the simplest question. What is an operating system? It sounds like something complicated, but it's actually easier to understand than most people think. Imagine your computer is a giant supermarket. You have customers walking around, employees stocking shelves, cashiers handling payments, managers overseeing everything, trucks delivering supplies. And behind the scenes, a huge amount of coordination keeps the entire place from descending into chaos. If 2 customers reach the last box of cereal at the same time, things get messy. If a cashier tries to process 4 customers simultaneously, something breaks. And if a random visitor walks into the warehouse behind the shop, chaos happens fast. An operating system is the manager that prevents all of this chaos. It decides who can do what, when they can do it, how much they're allowed to use, and it keeps everyone safe, well-behaved, and separated so nobody interferes with anyone else. That's literally what an operating system does. It manages. It manages your programs, your memory, your files, your hardware, your security. And even you, because without an OS, you wouldn't be able to talk to your computer at all. The layers inside an operating system. Now let's peel back the layers and look at how this manager works. Not in a technical way, but in a simple human way. Inside an operating system, there are a few major parts. First, the kernel. Think of this as the brain. It decides who gets the CPU, who gets memory, and how hardware is used. You never see it. But it is constantly awake, constantly deciding things, and constantly keeping everything from falling apart. Next, device drivers. Your computer doesn't automatically know how to talk to a camera or a mouse or a printer. Drivers are like translators. They convert simple commands into the complicated electrical language that hardware speaks. Next, system libraries. These are like toolkits that apps depend on. Instead of every app reinventing the wheel, the operating system gives them pre-built functions like draw a window, play this sound, or save this file. Next, the user interface. This is the visible part. The desktop, the icons, the menus, the cursor, the windows. This is what most people think the operating system is. But it's actually just the outer layer, like the paint on a house, not the house itself. And finally, applications. Your browser, your video editor, your games, your music player, your chat apps. All of these depend on the layers below to work. So when you open a program, the kernel handles the CPU. The drivers talk to your hardware. The libraries offer tools. The interface shows everything visually, and your app simply uses all of it. Your computer feels simple because your operating system hides everything complicated. Why we even need operating systems. To understand why operating systems are so important, imagine a computer without one. You turn it on. Nothing appears. Nothing reacts. No cursor. No desktop. Just emptiness. Your keyboard and mouse don't work because nothing is listening to them. Your screen doesn't show anything because nothing is sending signals to it. Your apps can't run because there is nobody managing memory or CPU time. Without an operating system, your computer is just a pile of wires, silicon and metal, powerful but useless. Operating systems turn that pile into something you can actually use. The three big operating systems, Windows, macOS, and Linux. Now that we know what an OS does, let's talk about the big three Windows, macOS, and Linux. All operating systems do similar things behind the scenes, but their philosophies, how they approach the job, are radically different. Think of them as three managers running three very different supermarkets. Windows, the universal shop that tries to support everything. Windows is like a giant supermarket that anyone can walk into. It doesn't matter what your background is, what tools you bring, what you want to buy, or what device you're using. Windows will try its best to support everything. This is because Windows runs on almost every kind of hardware you can imagine. Cheap laptops, high-end gaming rigs, office desktops, DIY builds, machines from hundreds of companies with thousands of possible combinations. To work in all these environments, Windows has to be incredibly flexible. That means supporting an ocean of devices, apps, drivers, and old technologies that people still rely on. This is why Windows feels familiar to everyone. Why it can run almost any program. Why almost every game is built for it. And yes, why it sometimes feels a bit chaotic. Supporting everything means handling everything, including weird drivers, old software, random hardware quirks, and millions of combinations that Microsoft can't perfectly predict. Despite this, Windows remains the world's most widely used desktop OS, not because it's perfect, but because it's universal. Windows follows a simple philosophy. If someone needs it, support it. That makes Windows powerful, messy, familiar, and essential all at the same time. macOS, the polished, controlled, seamless experience. If Windows is the giant supermarket open to everyone, macOS is the private luxury store where everything is curated by a single designer, Apple. macOS only runs on Apple's own hardware. Apple chooses the chips. Apple designs the boards. Apple picks the batteries, screens, and speakers. And Apple writes the software that ties it all together. This level of control creates something rare in the tech world: consistency. Consistency in performance. Consistency in design. Consistency in behavior. This is why macOS feels smooth and predictable. Why apps on macOS look cohesive. Why crashes are less common. And why creative professionals, editors, designers, musicians tend to love the platform. Apple's philosophy is simple: control everything to make everything feel perfect. There's a trade-off, though. macOS isn't as customizable. It doesn't run on non-Apple hardware. It doesn't give you deep access to the system. But what you lose in freedom, you gain in stability and polish. macOS is the closed ecosystem approach done extremely well. Linux, the open, flexible build-it-yourself universe. Linux is different. Very different. If Windows is the giant supermarket and macOS is the luxury boutique. Linux is the massive pile of Lego blocks where you can build anything you want. Linux is open source. Nobody owns it. Anyone can modify it. Anyone can redistribute it. And anyone can build their own version. This is why Linux isn't just one operating system. It's hundreds, maybe thousands. Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, Mint, Arch, each one built by different communities for different goals. Linux is lightweight, fast, flexible, extremely stable. And that's why it runs pretty much everything except your home laptop. Most servers, most cloud machines, most supercomputers, most routers, most embedded systems, and Android smartphones, which are all built on top of the Linux kernel. Linux runs the internet. It powers global infrastructure. It's the backbone of the digital world. But on the desktop, Linux can be magical for developers and experts, and confusing for everyone else. Its freedom is incredible, but it comes with responsibility. You can customize everything, change everything, break everything, and fix everything. Linux has a simple philosophy. The system belongs to the user, not the company. Comparing the three systems. So now we have three operating systems with three different personalities. Windows, the universal system built to run everywhere. macOS, the curated system, built for elegance and consistency. Linux, the open system, built for flexibility and control. Let's compare them in a few ways. Openness Windows is partially open, but mostly closed. macOS is tightly closed. Linux is completely open. Stability Windows is stable enough but unpredictable because of hardware diversity. macOS is extremely stable due to Apple's control of everything. Linux is rock solid, especially on servers. Customization Windows lets you tweak things, but only up to a point. macOS allows very little customization. Linux lets you change literally everything. Software support Windows has the broadest support, especially for games. macOS has great creative and professional apps. Linux shines in programming servers and specialized tools, but gaming is improving slowly. Philosophy, Windows support everyone and everything. macOS control everything for a perfect experience. Linux give users full freedom. None of these approaches is wrong. They are simply different solutions to different goals. What operating systems actually do? All day long. Now that we understand each system's personality, let's zoom back into the core idea. What does an operating system actually do behind the scenes? All day long non-stop, it performs three critical jobs. First, managing resources. This means assigning CPU time memory storage and hardware access to the right programs at the right moment. Without this, apps would crash into each other like cars at an intersection without traffic lights. Second, running applications. Your browser, your notes, your games, your editor. The OS loads them, keeps them isolated, and makes sure they behave. Third, enforcing security. This includes permissions, firewalls, sandboxing, and preventing programs from touching things they shouldn't. Without this, a single malicious program could wreck your system instantly. If you think this sounds simple, remember, the OS is making millions of decisions every second to maintain order. It never stops. It never sleeps. It reacts instantly to everything. And it keeps your machine from breaking down. What if the operating system disappeared for 1 second? To understand how essential the OS is, imagine it disappeared for just 1 second. Your apps would freeze instantly. Your screen would stop updating. Your keyboard and mouse wouldn't work. Your storage would become inaccessible. Your hardware wouldn't know what to do. Your security would evaporate. Within a fraction of a second, your entire computer would collapse into undefined behavior. The OS never gets a break because giving it a break isn't an option. It is the only thing keeping the machine coherent. Why so many people fight over which OS is best? There's a reason people argue about operating systems. It's the same reason people argue about cars or cameras or even food. Different systems match different needs. Windows is great for compatibility, games offices, and general users. macOS is great for stability, creativity, and hardware integration. Linux is great for control servers, privacy, and technical users. Each one succeeds at what it aims to do. The real question isn't which OS is best. The real question is which OS is best for you. Choosing the right OS. If you want something that works out of the box, supports almost everything, and doesn't require much thought, Windows is the natural choice. If you want a smooth, polished experience, and you're already in the Apple ecosystem, macOS will feel like home. If you want maximum control transparency and the ability to shape your system exactly how you like, Linux is unmatched. But the best part is that you don't have to pick just one. Many people use Windows for gaming, macOS for work, and Linux for servers. Operating systems aren't rivals, they're tools. The strange beauty of operating systems. When you understand what an operating system does, you start to appreciate something important. Computers are unbelievably complicated, and yet we experience them as something simple, something we can control with a single click. Operating systems turn complexity into simplicity, chaos into order, electricity into meaning, and raw machinery into something we can understand. Every time you click an icon or type a command, you're interacting with a system built from decades of engineering, layered abstraction, and careful design. Windows, macOS, Linux. 3 approaches, 3 philosophies, 3 ways of bringing order to the digital world. You may prefer one of them, or you may switch between them. But every one of them exists to solve the same fundamental problem. How do human beings control billions of electrical switches? Without going insane? The answer is simple. You don't. Your operating system does it for you. Final thought. So the next time you open your laptop and everything just works, remember it's only working because an invisible manager inside your computer is making sure the world stays organized. Without it, nothing would happen. With it, everything feels natural. Operating systems are the quiet heroes of modern technology. We rarely notice them. We rarely think about them. And yet, they shape everything we do on a computer. And now you know exactly what they're doing and why the differences between Windows, macOS, and Linux matter more than most people ever realize. Operating systems shape how we use our computers, how our software works, and how the digital world stays organized. Each one, Windows, macOS, and Linux, solves the same problem in its own way. There's no perfect system, only the one that fits what you need. If you found this explanation helpful, feel free to explore more topics with me. There's a lot in technology that looks simple on the surface, but becomes fascinating once you slow down and look underneath. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.